It was midday, and the cranky old magician was still asleep. He was snoring loudly when someone knocked at the door. "Who's there?" he yelled. His young apprentice quickly ran to see. It was the queen.
"Magician,"
she moaned,
"I have a terrible toothache. Can you help me?"
asked the queen.
"It's your own fault,"
the magician called.
"You eat too many sweets."
He closed his eyes and pulled the pillow over his head.
"But I was eating an apple,"
cried the queen.
"Go away,"
the magician yelled,
"or I'll...
The magician tossed off his pillow and hurled a spell at the queen. The queen turned into a lollipop on a stick. The magician pulled his nightcap down over his eyes. He was soon snoring loudly again when someone else knocked at his door. His young apprentice ran quickly to see who it was. The king stood at the door. He was in pain.
"A bee has stung me on the nose, magician. Can you help me?" "Serves you right. Maybe now you'll stop sniffing flowers like a silly donkey,"
the magician grumbled from under his bed covers.
"But I was watering the flowers,"
the king said.
"Go away,"
the magician yelled,
"or I'll...
He threw off his bed covers and hurled a spell at the king. The king turned into a donkey with long pointed ears. The magician stuffed his bed socks into his ears. He was snoring loudly again when a third person knocked at his door. The young apprentice ran quickly to see who it was.
"Help! Help!"
the little princess cried. Her eyes were full of tears.
"Someone has turned the king into a donkey and the queen into a lollipop. Please, magician, will you help them?"
asked the princess. The cranky old magician burst out of bed. His face was purple.
"Little toad,"
he shouted. The princess turned into a toad.
"And you can all stay that way,"
the magician yelled, and just to annoy them more, he zapped himself and turned into a big buzzing fly. He buzzed around the queen. He licked sugar off her lollipop head. He buzzed around the king. He buzzed loudly in and out of his donkey ears. He was buzzing towards the princess when suddenly her long toad's tongue flicked out and the magician was plucked from the air. He disappeared down the toad's throat. Oh, the toad pulled a face. She spat the fly out. He tasted awful. The young apprentice quickly started reading through the magician's spell books. He found a spell that turned the lollipop back into the queen. He found a spell that turned the donkey back into the king. Next, he found a spell that turned the toad back into the princess. Midnight passed, and he still hadn't found a spell to turn the fly back into the magician. The apprentice did find something interesting on page 742 of the spell book. A magician who zaps himself must change himself back, or stay that way forever. Don't change yourself into a fly. Flies have small brains. They can never remember how to change back, so you will be stuck as a fly forever.